People were always drawn to her with problems that they couldn't solve. A friend stuck in a toxic relationship, a coworker battling procrastination, or even her own mother needing a cosigner for a lease. Somehow, they always believed that she was the answer to their problems. And often she was able to help. She could troubleshoot a computer glitch within minutes, provide insight into complicated relationship dynamics, or guide someone through a career crossroads like it was second nature. She offered practical yet unconventional solutions that were rooted in a knowledge that sometimes seemed limitless. People praised her endlessly when she succeeded. But sometimes the problems that she was handed weren't actually hers to solve. A distant friend would expect her to fix their entire life, or someone would project an image on her that just wasn't true. When she fell short and couldn't deliver, admiration quickly turned to disappointment, and she was knocked off the pedestal that she had been put on. She didn't understand why people expected so much from her, or why she felt this constant pull to dive deeper into understanding life, purpose, and human potential, as if her studies could somehow shield her from failing other people's expectations. After she discovered human design, things started to make sense. The endless research, the projections, the desire to save the day. Turns out that the rescuer dynamic was not random. It was all part of her energetic makeup. And now, instead of being overwhelmed by the expectations of others, she uses what she has learned through in depth study, research, and application to provide practical solutions to problems that are correct for her. She is actually me, and I'm a 5-1 profile in human design. Welcome to Heart Centered Human Design, Emotional Intelligence and Conscious Business, the show that empowers heart centered entrepreneurs to use human design and emotional intelligence to create meaningful success, work life balance, and transform their passion and purpose into impact and prosperity. I'm your host, Vanessa Naja, 5-1 emotional manifesting generator, human design nerd, mentor, and business coach. And I'm so excited to share this incredible system with you to help you be on purpose and fulfill your potential. In today's episode, I'm covering the 5-1 Heretic Investigator profile in human design. I'll go over each of the lines individually, what it means to have them in this specific placement, and then bring these two aspects together into the 5-1 human design profile. And we'll also go over some of the pitfalls that this profile can fall into, as well as the solutions to those pitfalls, particularly in business. And I suspect that there are going to be some personal anecdotes because, like I said, I'm a 5-1 profile. Be sure to get your free human design purpose report to dive deeper into your own purpose at vanessanaja.com/free guide. And I am currently answering your burning questions for free based on your unique design. So head on over to vanessanaja.com/bite size, submit your questions, and I will send you a personalized voice note directly to your email with my answer to your question based on your design. I've already done episodes on both the 5th line and the 1st line profile individually. So if you'd like to check those out, go back to season 1 and check out episode 34 for the 5th line and episode 30 for the 1st line. So the 5-1 profile is the first of the transpersonal destiny profiles. These are also known as the left angles. I went into a little bit more depth about this in last week's episode, the episode on the 4-1, about the difference between personal, transpersonal, and fixed fate profiles. Now, the transpersonal profiles, they require other people in order to fulfill their purpose. Transpersonal profiles learn through their relationships and through their interactions with other people. This is how they learn about themselves, and then they are meant to lead, guide, and support other people through their work. This is a little different from the personal profile, which first and foremost learns through its own challenges, through its own introspection, and needs to really go through that whole inner process before they can connect with others. The left angles or the transpersonal profiles really need others in order to learn about themselves. Let's start with the fifth line, heretic. The 5 is the conscious line and the 1 is the unconscious. And remember, the part of your profile that is conscious to you is something that you are likely very aware of. Once you learn about this, you'll recognize it in yourself right away. And the unconscious part is something that you might not be aware of, but that other people definitely see in you. And if you've done a lot of personal development, then yes, you probably will already be aware of that unconscious aspect of yourself. However, it might not be as obvious to you as the conscious side. And in the 5-1 profile, the 5, which is known as the heretic in traditional human design, is the conscious side. This is the practical problem solver. Fifth lines bring solutions, often out of the box, unconventional solutions, and often in times of crisis. Now, they can be ahead of their time, and that is also why they're sometimes known as being heretical, because they are bringing things that people maybe have never heard or seen before and that are just unconventional and out of the box. In BG5, the business application of human design, this is actually known as the messenger because they do bring these solutions through their messages that help support other people. Now, the fifth line, they can be the fixers of the human design profiles. They provide the solutions to the problems. And if you have a 5-1 profile, this is part of your aura, and people can sense this about you. And people will often come to you to solve their problems. Now, there is also a projection field with anybody that has a 5th line in their profile. People will project onto you that you have their solutions, and you may have those solutions. And if you do, and they are the correct solutions for you to offer, then you will be celebrated. It's going to be great for your reputation. People will put you up on that pedestal and it'll be awesome. However, if you do not provide the solutions, if you do not fulfill the expectations that people have of you, you get knocked off of your pedestal, people will be disappointed, and your reputation can suffer. And this can often be a big pain point for people with 5th lines in their profiles. And the thing to be aware of with the projection field is that it is a projection. People often see in you things that they need to heal in themselves. They see things in you that they want to see. They expect you to be what they want you to be. And that's not necessarily going to be the case. And that's okay. And it's nothing about you. The projections you receive are not about you. They are about the other person. And the best solution for receiving healthy projections is to really express your authentic self, share who you truly are with others, share the problems that you are able to solve, the things that you're really interested in, and be sure to only accept the projections that are correct for you. What does that mean? Well, if somebody comes to you wanting you to solve a problem of theirs, follow your strategy and authority to see, is this actually a problem that I can solve and that is correct for me to solve, before you try to dive in and solve their problems. And before I discovered my human design and I learned about my 5th line, I was constantly jumping in all over the place, trying to save people, trying to fix people, trying to solve people's problems. And I kept getting these expectations, like really heavy expectations, like from my family, to solve really massive problems that weren't mine to solve, especially at an early age. And when I learned about this 5th line, it started to make so much sense to me. And building healthy boundaries and being able to say, no, I am not going to fix this for you because it's not the right thing, is really essential for you, and also empowers other people to find the solutions that are correct for them if you cannot provide those solutions. And I have a fun little story about this. Not that fun, but I, at a time in my life, was projected upon that I would be good at software development. I'm a pretty logical thinker. It is actually something that came really easily to me. And I took on that projection of, oh, well, I should do this because I'm good at it. So I studied it in depth, got to a point of proficiency where I was able to build my own app in JavaScript. And I had documented this whole process on the app formerly known as Twitter through a challenge known as 100 Days of Code, where you code every day for 100 days and you share your progress. And I had attracted the attention of some business owners that I eventually secured a job with. And I really wanted this job. This is well before COVID. I really wanted to have location independence and location freedom. And I really wanted to work for a 100% remote company. So I managed to get this job based on a projection. And it was working on a complicated large code base. Now, at this point, I'd basically been teaching myself JavaScript, and I was in no way, shape, or form ready for this position. I took it anyway. I was super excited about it. And before you knew it, I got fired because I did not meet up to these expectations or projections that the company owners had, that I would actually be able to help solve their problem of needing a software developer that would fit in well with their company and that was well aligned with their values and could actually do the work, because I couldn't do the work. I was well aligned with their company and their values, but I couldn't do the work. I wasn't ready. So I got fired. And then, funny story, I actually managed to get rehired and get fired again, but I'll save that one for another day. But this is the type of stuff that happens when you try to fulfill projections that are not correct for you. So having healthy boundaries, listening to your strategy and authority, only accepting the projections that are correct for you, letting people know which problems you can't solve is really important for a fifth line. And also not taking projections personally, because you're still going to get projections. People are still going to have expectations of you that you cannot fulfill, and you will disappoint them. And it's not a personal thing. And it's really important to learn to not take those things personally. And I know it's easier said than done, but just having that awareness of when you're receiving projections that aren't correct for you, knowing that you do not need to fulfill everybody's expectations and that actually you can't. And it can be really bad for your reputation if you try. Now, the other thing with a conscious fifth line is that we can be a little bit paranoid and a little bit suspicious of other people. And this is actually not necessarily a bad thing, because people do have expectations of us. People are drawn to us. The 5-1 profile can be very magnetic, and it can pull people in with those people thinking that we can save them in some way, shape, or form. So having a little bit of that skepticism and a little bit of that suspicion of like what people want from you, and really checking in with your strategy and authority and seeing if it is something you want to support them in, is also really important for the 5-1 profile. Now, the first line here is the unconscious line. And the first line is the investigator, the researcher, the authority. The first line can tend to have some insecurity, and they need a solid foundation. And they build that foundation through knowledge, research, and investigation of the things that they are actually really interested in. So any first line, if you have a first line in your profile, you probably relate of wanting to really go deep on the subjects you're interested in and gathering as much information and knowledge as you can, so that you are building a solid foundation and you really can become an expert or an authority in your field. Now, one of the pitfalls that the first line can fall into is that they feel like they never know enough and that they need another certification, more research, more courses before they can actually share their wisdom with the world. And this can be very problematic, because if you really fall too heavily and lean into that first line aspect, then you can't fulfill the second part of your profile. And in this case, that is the fifth line, which uses their knowledge, what they have researched, what they have learned, to provide practical solutions to other people. You do need to balance both of those parts. And a lot of times, first time profiles do not give themselves the credit for what they actually know. They always feel like they don't know enough and they need to know more, and they can't provide solutions until they know more. This can lead them from putting anything out into the world because they feel like they are not ready or they don't know enough. And you cannot succeed in business if you're not sharing what you know with the world. So it is important to note here, you are going to research and investigate and refine for your entire life. And you have to find that place where you start to share and implement while you continue to research and refine. And just to know that you will refine over time. What you share today, it is okay for you to deepen that, to maybe even change your mind about it as you gather more information. And when you do that, you will continue to share about what is true for you now. So essential for first lines to be willing to step out there and share what they have known and researched, and to actually give themselves the credit for having the level of depth that they have. If you have a first line in your profile, you have probably more depth than most people based on the amount of research and investigation that you have done. Be sure to put that out there and share it with the world. Follow your strategy and authority to know what to study and what to share. Because the other pitfall a first sign can fall into is that somebody else might say, oh, you would be really good at software development. Stop me if this sounds familiar. And you might want to study it because you'd probably be really good at doing that as a career. And then you spend a whole bunch of time studying it. You invest a whole lot of energy studying it, only to discover later that, yeah, actually, yes, it is something that you could do. And you probably could become really good at it if you continue to apply yourself. But it actually frustrates the crap out of you. You'll cry every time you do it, and it's not the right thing for you. So, speaking from personal experience, make sure that the things that you research and dive deep into are not something that someone projected onto you, but something that you actually really love, are really interested in, and something that your strategy and authority brought you to. So, bringing the 5 and the 1 together in the 5-1 profile. This is actually the most transpersonal of the profiles. The 5 universalizes. The 5 needs to put out to a large group of people what it knows, what it has researched, what it has discovered through its first line process. Now, this is different from the 4. The 4 is more impactful on its network and people it already knows. The 5 is more impactful on strangers of consequence. And this is such a transpersonal profile. If you are a 5-1, you might often have that experience of meeting people and feeling like you have already known them. And you also might note that you are able to impact people that you will never know, that you will never meet, that you will never have any idea what an impact you had on them. That is part of being a 5-1 profile. There is that destiny of making an impact on a large number of people, provided you're actually sharing what you learned in your first line process. Now, 5-1, they really need to balance their time being out in the projection field, sharing what they know, with their alone time researching and investigating. And oftentimes it can happen that people tend more towards one side of the profile or the other side. And if you were leaning more into your 5th line, you might be out, shouting off the rooftops what you happen to be excited about at the moment, but you haven't actually researched it deeply enough, and then you can't provide the solutions you think you can provide, and you get knocked off your pedestal and your reputation suffers. Or on the flip side, you get so absorbed in your own inner alone researching process that you don't actually share what you've learned, in which case you can't make an impact. So you really have to balance both sides of this profile, making sure you do your research, your investigation, you spend your time alone. And then when you're ready, you step out and share. You do want to really find that balance between you share what you know, what you have studied, what you have found to be a solid foundation, a solid solution for other people, and you share it without oversharing when you're not ready, and without not sharing at all because you think you're not ready. It is a fine line. It takes some practice, experimenting, using your strategy and authority to really find that balance. Now, there are some things that you will often hear when you study the 5th line. And as a 5-1, if you're into human design, I'm sure you've been studying your profile plenty. You will hear people in the human design world talking about the 5 as like they need to get in, provide the solution, and get out. And if they stay too long, they out where they're welcome. Now, I'm a 5-1, and for me personally, I have found this not to be true. I taught Pilates for 17 years, and I had clients that came into my life that literally just wanted to stay with me forever. And the only reason they're no longer with me is because I stopped teaching Pilates. And I even felt guilty about that, but it was time for me to move on. And they were with me for years. So if you're one of those 5-1 profiles and you have taken in this negative conditioning of like, you can't stay too long, remember, follow your strategy and authority. There are going to be those situations when, yes, it's time to get in, provide the solution, and get out. And there are going to be other times where the solution that you have actually takes place over a long time period to deliver. You'll know what's correct for you by really leaning into your authority and not taking on these ideas or trying to force your 5th line process into something you've taken on from the outside. Because remember, human design is really about you discovering your own inner authority and what is correct for you. You'll know when to leave when the time is right by following your own inner authority. So just to wrap up on that 5-1 profile, it is important to only answer the correct projections, to offer the solutions that you have studied, that you have built a solid foundation in, that feels correct to you. Be careful about not trying to solve problems that aren't yours to solve. Be careful about not being seduced by the wrong projections, because that can also happen, as happened to me when I received a projection that I could actually solve a problem for this company I was hired for. And I was seduced by it, thinking if they want to hire me, I must know enough and I must be ready. And I totally wasn't. This can also happen with you receive a projection that you can provide some solution that you have absolutely no experience. You become flattered and you try to solve that problem and you don't. Okay. So again, always going back to strategy and authority, not taking on the wrong projections. And also be careful about not trying to be the savior, because this is the fixer profile. And we can really provide these awesome solutions, but you want to be doing it because it is the correct thing to do, not because you want to be a savior or you want to fix some area that's not correct for you, or you're doing it because you need some kind of an ego boost out of providing a solution that's actually not yours to provide. So being very careful about that savior complex, both you taking that on yourself and also receiving the projections that you are a savior for someone else. And then lastly, just to reiterate, it's important you don't hide out from the projection field. Yes, you do want to come and balance your alone time, your research time with time out in the projection field. But if you hide out, you are not going to be able to make the impact you were born to make or fulfill your purpose. If you want to dive deeper into your purpose, make sure to get your free human design purpose guide at vanessanaja.com/free guide. I'll link it in the show notes, which dives deeper into multiple aspects of your chart and your purpose, including your profile. It is personalized specifically to your chart. And be sure to take advantage of free bite-sized human design session with me, where you can ask me anything, any question about your business, your work, your life, or just your chart in general, and I will answer it in a personalized voice note. Get that one at vanessanaja.com/bite-size, also linked in the show notes. I would love to hear how this landed for you, especially if you're a 5-1 profile. How does this show up for you? Please share with me in the comments, and also be sure to rate the show wherever you are watching or listening. It makes such a big difference when the show has ratings on it so that I can share my message. I appreciate it so much. And I would love to connect with you on Instagram and Blue Sky. It's at HD Vanessa Naja on Instagram and vanessanaja.com on Blue Sky. Would love to connect with you. I am constantly posting free, valuable resources on both of those platforms. You can DM me, reach out to me directly with any questions that you might have. And I really look forward to connecting with you. Thank you so much for listening.